Modern life doesn't suffer from a lack of activity. We're constantly in motion, replying to messages, ticking off to-do lists, attending meetings, catching up with news, and fighting the feeling of always being behind. But strangely, many of us feel like we're moving fast without actually getting anywhere. This is the paradox of progress. We mistake motion for meaning, effort for effectiveness. It's easy to fill a day with busyness while completely avoiding the few actions that truly move the needle. This isn't laziness, it's misalignment. At the core, most people aren't struggling with time management. They're struggling with priority blindness. When everything feels urgent, nothing feels important. When the calendar is full, but our lives are empty of direction, the issue is not productivity, it's clarity. And clarity doesn't come from apps or hacks. It begins with the ability to choose deliberately, to step back and ask, what actually matters? One of the simplest yet most powerful habits is to define your top priorities for tomorrow before today ends. This practice, taught to me by my father and reinforced by countless high performers, creates a subtle but profound mental shift from reactive to proactive. When you decide your top 3 tasks the night before and single out one as non-negotiable, you're doing more than just organizing. You're rehearsing success. You're programming your subconscious to start solving tomorrow's problems in advance. This is backed by behavioral science. The Zeigarnik effect shows the brain keeps open loops active in the background. Naming your priorities in advance triggers your brain to work on them even while you sleep. Habit number 1, decide tomorrow, today. This simple shift changes the emotional tone of your mornings. Instead of waking up wondering what to do, you begin with direction. You already know where to start. And that momentum is often the difference between a distracted day and a productive one. Here's how to make this habit stick. Every evening, write down your top 3 outcomes for the next day. Choose one that is absolutely essential. Mark it. Keep the list visible, review it first thing in the morning. You'll be amazed how a 2-minute evening ritual can eliminate hours of indecision and drift. The world rewards fast responders. We're trained to think that being reachable and responsive equals responsibility, but this culture of instant replies has a hidden cost. We begin to prioritize noise over meaning, mistaking urgency for importance, and constant reaction for true progress. The cost of confusing urgency with importance. Urgent tasks often come from others. They shout, they flash red, they feel immediate, but that doesn't make them important. Important tasks are quieter. They come from within. They require space, focus, and thought. Over time, if we habitually prioritize urgency, we become excellent at putting out fires, but incapable of building anything that lasts. This is why the second part of the daily planning habit is so critical. It forces you to distinguish, what do I want to create, advance, or complete, regardless of who's calling, texting, or interrupting. The more we operate in reaction mode, the more we become slaves to external demands. But when we protect even 1 hour a day for meaningful, strategic work, we reclaim our autonomy. And that's what my father meant when he said, if you don't decide what matters tomorrow, someone else will. High performers don't just work harder, they work with a tighter focus. This lesson became especially clear when I learned about how Navy SEALs survive Hell Week, a brutal 5-day initiation filled with physical pain, mental exhaustion, and emotional stress. Habit number 2, focus like a SEAL. Narrow the frame. One of the core survival strategies used by SEALs is called narrowing the frame. When overwhelmed, they stop thinking about the entire week. They focus only on the next objective, the next lap, the next breath, the next rep. This isn't just about elite training. It's a cognitive strategy with deep psychological benefits, helping the mind shrink problems into manageable steps. When we feel overwhelmed, it's usually because we're projecting too far ahead, stacking tomorrow's problems on today's shoulders. Narrowing the frame brings us back to the present, where action is possible and progress becomes visible. This habit has enormous applications in daily life. During high-pressure weeks, reduce your mental field. Ask, what deserves my full focus right now? And eliminate competing demands for short, focused bursts of time. Neuroscience confirms that multitasking significantly reduces efficiency. The brain can't process multiple complex tasks at once. It rapidly switches between them, losing momentum with each shift. In contrast, single tasking, deep, uninterrupted attention, creates flow. It compounds learning, boosts output, and increases satisfaction. Most importantly, it builds identity. Each time you choose focus over distraction, you reinforce the belief, I am someone who finishes what matters. Less noise, more heat. The difference between busyness and productivity. There's a metaphor I often return to. Two campfires. One is loud, crackling with smoke and sparks, drawing attention with its noise, but it gives off little heat. The other is quieter. Fewer sparks, less drama, but intense heat. It warms, it cooks, it sustains. The first fire is busyness. The second is productivity. In a world obsessed with motion, the hardest thing to do is pause and ask, is this actually moving me forward or just making me feel active? Real productivity is quiet. It often goes unnoticed. It doesn't need to be broadcast because its results speak for themselves. The habit of narrowing your frame and protecting space for focused work ensures your effort converts into meaningful outcomes, not just surface activity. Choosing what to say no to and why that changes everything. We often think of productivity as adding things, more tools, more tasks, more hours. But in practice, lasting improvement usually begins with subtraction, specifically the ability to say no. No to unnecessary meetings, no to non-essential commitments, no to the false belief that you must be constantly available. This is not selfishness, it's clarity. Every yes is a trade-off. When you say yes to something urgent but unimportant, you're often saying no to something meaningful but quiet, like deep work, health, rest, or connection. One practical way to cultivate this habit is through what author Greg McKenna calls the disciplined pursuit of less. Ask yourself daily, what's the one thing I could remove from my schedule today to create more space for what matters? What have I been tolerating out of guilt, fear, or habit that no longer serves me? Each removed distraction sharpens your ability to focus. Each clear no strengthens your ability to say yes with full integrity. We often assume habits are formed with repetition and discipline. Just do it for 21 days, we tell ourselves. But in reality, most habits don't break dramatically. They fade quietly, collapsing in small compromises. Why most habits fail and what makes them stick. The truth is that most people approach habit formation with the wrong mental model. They see it as a short-term sprint, not a long-term transformation. They treat habits as tasks to check off, not identities to grow into. As a result, they overestimate the power of motivation, underestimate the importance of structure, and ignore the emotional journey that every sustainable habit must pass through. Let's walk through the 3 invisible stages that every habit crosses and why understanding them might be the missing link between your intentions and your outcomes. First is the honeymoon phase, where enthusiasm fools you. Starting something new feels good. You join a gym, imagine your future six-pack. You buy a notebook, picture your best self journaling by candlelight. You cut sugar and feel heroic. This initial high feels unshakable. This is the honeymoon phase. You're emotionally charged and mentally committed, but this energy is deceptive. It convinces you that the habit will always feel this easy. That excitement is a poor indicator of long-term sustainability. Sooner or later, stress arrives. You sleep poorly. A work deadline eats your schedule. You skip your workout. You forget your gratitude list. Motivation vanishes, and without systems in place, the habit breaks. As the novelty fades, friction begins. The habit that once felt exciting now feels inconvenient. Going to bed early costs you a late-night scroll.
Reading for 15 minutes cuts into your TV time. Journaling feels awkward when your mood is low. This is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of progress. New behaviors create internal resistance because they disrupt your old identity.
You're confronting the parts of you that are comfortable with the status quo. The laziness, avoidance, and craving for comfort don't go quietly. They resist. That resistance is a signal. You're doing something that matters. Many people walk away at this point, assuming they weren't disciplined enough. But discipline isn't what keeps a habit alive. It's structure. Without structure, habits fail when motivation fades or circumstances change. Instead, you need friction-reducing strategies. Lay your shoes out before bed. Write one sentence if you don't feel like journaling. Celebrate the fact that you showed up, even when it wasn't ideal. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to become the kind of person who doesn't disappear when it gets hard. This is the essence of the resistance phase, learning to persist despite discomfort. Let's say you made it past the resistance phase. You've been consistent for a few weeks and it's finally paying off. You're sleeping better, thinking clearer, maybe even seeing results in your energy, body, or mindset. But then, progress slows. The visible gains start to flatten. You no longer feel that rush of improvement. The habit begins to feel repetitive, not inspiring. This is what many call the plateau. But it's more than boredom. It's when your brain quietly asks, do I really need this anymore? You might skip a day, then another. A week goes by and you tell yourself, I'll get back to it soon. Most don't. Once a habit slips into the background, it quietly falls apart, not because you chose to stop, but because you stopped choosing. But this phase also holds the seed of something powerful, identity change. If you push through the plateau, not by force, but by consistency, the habit begins to integrate into who you are. You're no longer trying to work out. You're someone who works out. You don't force yourself to read. You're someone who reads. This identity shift is where real transformation begins. Once a habit becomes part of your self-image, you no longer negotiate with it. You don't ask, should I meditate today? You meditate because that's who you are now. Let's bust a myth. Your environment influences habits more than your willpower ever will. Most of our behaviors are automatic responses to surroundings. You scroll because your phone is nearby, snack because chips are visible, skip your walk because shoes are in the closet. Your environment is constantly shaping your behavior. Smart habit builders redesign their surroundings to make good choices easier and bad ones harder. Reduce friction for behaviors you want, put your journal on your pillow, keep running shoes by the door, lay out vitamins on the table. Increase friction for behaviors you want to break. Hide social media apps, put your phone in a drawer, delete shortcuts. These tweaks create momentum and strengthen your sense of control. At first, every habit feels like effort. You push, you plan, you stumble. But if you understand the stages, honeymoon, resistance, plateau, and build systems around identity, environment, and emotional recovery, habits begin to feel like something more. Not a to-do list, not a project, but a reflection of your values. Eventually, your essence. That's when you stop chasing habits and start becoming them. That's all for today's video. Thanks for listening.